The three most important things in business. There's only three. Number one, results. Number two, results. Number three, results. The three most important things in business is results. How do we get results? Whatever results are for you, whatever stage you are in your organization, whatever industry you're in, it is about getting results. So what I want to share with you today is the framework, the principles, and the practice for those people that get results. Independent of your business, there are principles that apply to every business. So how excited are you? All right, Brian, come on, we got to hear higher from you. You see? You see? So, the three most important things in business, we're going to explore the patterns, principles, and practice to get those. In addition to that, I'm going to be passionate. And my passion has a purpose. Anytime you feel my passion, recognize that I'm saying something what I believe is important. What I also want to offer you is a statistic. 98%. 98% of what you hear, if you do not write it down, you forget. How much, sir? He's forgotten. How many people here wrote down what Brian was saying? Excellent. Look at these geniuses in the room. The rest of you are geniuses on the edge of your seat. You're ready to write it down. Write stuff down. It is about writing down what is important for you, what resonates with you. Does that make sense? Write stuff down. And for your pleasure, I'm going to draw live as I speak. This is going to be a visual verbal experience. So how excited are you? As an Irishman, I am compelled to tell you stories. And in the Latvian culture, like the Irish culture, there are deep stories. Stories are an excellent way to learn. One of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories, there we go, is the following. Draw what I draw. Ready? I am fascinated with how this becomes this. I'm fascinated with how an individual becomes part of a community. How we all form meaning by connecting. And there's one particular story I want to share, and that comes from the South Pacific Islands, an island community. And this island community comes together once every 5 years to build a boat. Everybody in the community has a task. The women, the men, the children, everybody is involved in building the boat. And the oldest person in the village, whether it's a man or a woman, they have a special task. Their task, they have to build a fire, sit by the fire, usually in the center of the village. They have to build a fire and sit by the fire, keep it burning for the whole length of the project, 2-3 weeks. And their job? To remember why they're building the boat. If people are tired at the end of the day, they come back, they sit around the fire, they tell stories why they're building the boat. If at the end of the day people come back because they've sent too many emails, they come back, even cold ones, to new CEOs. If we come back and remind ourselves why we're building the boat, we all are then carriers of the flame. What is your fire? At the heart of every great business initiative and organization is a fire that burns brightly. So, I have the honor of being the last speaker at this fantastic event. And what I want to really speak about is this. Force. How force predicts form. How force predicts form. If you want to focus on the form of your organization, the form of your product, the form of your service, understand the force and it will predict the form. Imagine, we have this shape, and if we put force on this shape from these different angles, what's going to happen? The shape will move out into some sort of structure like this. We can predict the form when we understand the force. That's a tweet, by the way. If you feel like tweeting, you could tweet that. Force predicts form. Understand the force, predict the form. So this is a different way of looking at things. And I have the honor of speaking at the end of this presentation, at the end of this event. And I want to speak about forces, the forces of our time and the forces of our business. 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 Business is only two things. Business is innovation, and business is communication. Now, the great management guru Peter Drucker will say that business is only two things, which is innovation and marketing. I have a slightly different concept of what marketing is, particularly in today's world when we have moments that we've just heard about. Everything now is changing. For me, what's great is there's a few things that never change. Innovation is how we solve a customer's need in a better way. Communication is convincing them that they should do business with us. Those two things are business. That's it. So, yeah, let's explore. Now, we have heard at this event about a number of things, and I want to offer you a framework, perhaps how you could put these things together. If we speak about technology, I believe there are three forces that technology is acting upon. The first one is knowledge. The second one is making. The third one is enabling. How we now know things is being influenced by big data, is being influenced by machine learning, by AI. Not only how we know things, but how we access the knowing of those things. So there's a whole conversation that we could have around technology that is about helping us to know something. Likewise, there's a second force, and that force is about how we can make things. And how we make things have been revolutionized. Things now are decentralized. Example. This table was manufactured somewhere and then delivered here. Probably a long journey to get here. The future is you download the design for this table and you have it manufactured relatively nearby. I'd like to say nearby, but we're not there yet. Decentralized, that means that it's coming closer to us. Circular. Things are now much more sustainable. I would always challenge a pessimistic view of the future. I will always say the future is bright because we are all designing the future we want to be part of. And part of that future is a circular economy. And of course, making things now is digital, as Brian is an expert upon. Down here is the third force about enabling. That is legal, government, money. And if you hear the word blockchain, it's going to be down here, which is about enabling new ways of accessing and moving around money. So I just want to offer you that perspective on how we could kind of crystallize and clarify all of this dynamics that we've been hearing around technology. And I would like to remind you that your fire is still resilient to all of that. All right. The reason, could you please put more lights up in the room, please? More lights, please, if possible. Thank you. Everybody hold out your hand, please. And close your eyes and point north. Point north. Please hold out your hands, point north. Now open your eyes and look. It's great, there's some people pointing upwards. What we've just seen there is a mixture of what we think as individually the direction north. According to my phone, north is over here. However, we have just had a collection of individuals moving in different directions. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the first challenge we need to overcome. The first challenge we need to overcome when we are designing, implementing, and growing a business, it's the same thing. Which way is north? And north is just simply a metaphor for which way are we going? Which way is our vision taking us? So the first challenge that we need to overcome is this idea of a shared vision, alignment that we're moving in this direction. There's a second challenge. And the second challenge begins with this. Too much of our world is operating like this. They think, and then they think that that thinking is going to be done. The head to the hand, however, it's missing something. Heart. Heart is another way of saying belief. Heart is another way of saying, I now understand as an organization we're going north, and me as an individual, I'm connected to that. We need head, hand, and heart. And in business, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the future is going to be about a four-letter word that is very uncomfortable to say in business. And that four-letter word is love. And there's some gentlemen in the room getting a little bit uncomfortable with that, and there's a few ladies that are saying, well, of course. The future, and if ladies, you get that. Gentlemen, if you feel uncomfortable with that, cross out that word and write down care. It's another four-letter word. Care and love is what we require in order to engage with each other inside our company, engage with our clients outside the company. This is our second challenge. There's a third challenge. Our third challenge has to do with this. I grew up in Ireland on a street. On that street, we had a dog. Our dog had a bad habit chasing cars up and down the street until he was hit by a car. We took him to the vet. He was okay. And he learned really quickly never to chase cars again on that street. Instead, he chased them on this street. We can laugh at our dog. Yet in life and in business, often this is what we do. All too often, this is what is called first-order learning. First-order learning is learning within the system. It's where we are sailing towards the iceberg more efficiently. Change within the system is first-order learning. However, what we require is second-order learning, and second-order learning is change to the system. I want to talk about some of the language we have in business. And one of the words that we regularly use in business is the word transformation. Transformation is different than the word change. First-order learning is change. Second-order learning, transformation. That is why we have less transformation and more change. Change is the only constant. Transformation happens rarely. Change happens to the caterpillar every day until it transforms into the butterfly. There's a difference. And the way to acknowledge and find that difference is to seek second-order learning. So, how? One of the great management gurus, Mr. Tom Peters, wrote an amazing book that's called In Search of Excellence. Who has read this book? Excellent. There's two old-timers like myself in the room. I like that. For those of you who have not read that book, I'm going to summarize it in this piece of paper here. The most important thing I got from that book was the following. In Search of Excellence, he studied companies that were not excellent. Then he studied companies that were excellent. And like a great consultant, he said, don't do that, do that. Brilliant. And one of the patterns, one of the dynamics that was in all of the successful organizations is here. The following. The organizations that were not successful, they did ready, aim, fire. They took a long time to get to market. There's a classic Harvard Business School's case study around a certain cola company who, in the 1980s, decided they should change the flavor of their cola. They did some research groups, and those research groups says that's a brilliant idea. And then many months later, after many millions being spent on it, they launched it, and it was a complete failure. Almost the end of that organization. Now, compare that to fire, ready, aim, the successful organizations. In Tokyo, there is a soft drinks company that launched 30 flavors of cola into the Tokyo market for a 3-month period. After 3 months, product X, Y, Z was successful, upon which they refined and repeated. You understand this. Of course you understand this. This has become fancy now with words such as agile, such as adaptive. In its essence, this is learning by doing. Learning by doing is what we have done since we've been a baby. It's very simple. And I would like to make it even more simple, and I'd like to suggest a model for you. This model is what I would say is the only strategy you ever need. Some consultants will say, we will make your 1-page strategy. I'm going to give you your 3-letter strategy. What we need to do is we need to act. And as soon as we've acted, we need to reflect upon that action. Now here's the really, really crucial thing. That's not enough. Because you can act and reflect yourself, you can do it with your team, but in order to get through, to really get through to that breakthrough, you need to consult. Consult is another way of saying, have a conversation with as many people as possible. This is the methodology. This is the strategy. Adaptive strategy, agile strategy, design strategy. This is the essence of what we've been doing since we've been children. And the 3-letter strategy, of course, is A, or C. Everything you do should be in the form of an arc. And of course, the concept of an arc is that you act, you reflect, you consult, you come back again. You act, you reflect, you consult. Cycles of growth. Cycles of learning. We don't know what the future is. And I can tell you for sure, whatever the future is, you're going to need the skill of learning by doing. This is certain. The future is not. I love the word technology because I'm not a technologist. I am regularly asked to speak at tech events. Recently, well, it was last year, at the end of last year, I was speaking at the G7 summit in Italy. I was facilitating conversations there around the future of work, big data, and AI. And I am not a technologist. I am tech savvy, but I'm not a technologist. And I believe that the future doesn't mean you need to be a technologist. You do need to be tech savvy. You need to understand technology and what it allows you, enables you to do. So I want to unpack this magic word, technology, that we use so often. What is technology? Tech literally means a method or a way or a means of doing something. A method of doing something. Ology means knowledge. Technology translates into a method of knowledge. It does not mean bits and bytes or digital. It can, and the concept of this is much, much bigger. So I want to liberate ourselves, and I want to give us a sense of comfort and confidence to understand technology. Technology is a means or a method of knowledge. This now brings us into a transition. The transition now means that we're going deeper. We're going deeper into this. We're going deeper to understand how, if we are here now, and that this is the past, and this is the future, here's the challenge. We can analyze the past. Can we analyze the future? No. We cannot analyze the future. We can design the future. We could visualize the future. We could create a scenario for the future. However, we cannot analyze the future. This is fundamental for us to understand the skill sets that we need now and in the future. The skill sets that we need are all around design. Now, you could change design there for creation, visualization, scenario thinking. I use the word design because I believe that we need to design the future. There's an activity with that. I get excited by the possibility of designing the future. By the way, if we want to talk about within an organization, that's on a large level. I want to bring this back to an organization, your organization. Your employees are working in the past. Your manager is working in the now. And you, as a leader, is working in the future. Employees are executing what has already been decided upon. Managers are making sure that that's been done efficiently right now. Leaders are thinking about the future. They're predicting, planning, designing the future. Every organization has that dynamic. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that employees cannot be managers or leaders. In fact, this whole dynamic now means that we are all leaders. We all need to design the future from whatever role we are playing. So, imagine the following. This is a person, and there are only two things that we can control. Whatever is happening to the world, whatever somebody says to us, whatever context we're in, there are only two things that we can control. The first thing that we can control is our attitude. The second thing that we can control is the actions that we take. If you want to create a culture within your organization, they're the two things that you work on with your employees. What is their attitude? Attitude is another way of saying mindset, another way of saying their philosophy, their approach. Attitude. And actions means you're going to enable them, you're going to empower them. Please write down on your piece of paper these two words. The first word is success, and the second word is experience. Has everybody got those words? Success and experience. Wonderful. Now, as quickly as possible, scribble it out. And scribble out this word. Instead of success, please write down this word. Significance. Significance. The most successful people in the world do not think about success. What they think about, what their attitude, what their mindset is, what is significant to them, to their clients, to the world. What is significant? Change the mindset from success into significance, and you transform your culture. The second word that I want you to replace, instead of experience, I want you to write down this word, relevance. Relevance. It does not matter how much experience you have, your product has, your organization has. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is it relevant? If it is relevant, it will be successful. And one of the challenges that many organizations have is as they go through their cycles of life and their cycles of growth, they get to a level of success. They have experience in success. And they start slowing down, or they start getting complacent, or plateauing, or they begin to become less relevant. If you want to create a resilient culture, your emphasis is always on relevance. Is this relevant? How can this be relevant? How can we make it more relevant? Relevance is key. So, I want you to draw on your piece of paper, please. Point A and point B. Right, at here, point A, you have a collection of bricks. Bricks. Now, you have to get the bricks to point B without leaving point A. What do? Excellent. We could throw the bricks. Well done. Now, same scenario. This time, however, at point A, and over here is point B. At point A, this time, however, you've got a collection of these. Now, if you've never seen Irish birds before, this is what they look like. At point A, you have a collection of birds. You can't leave point A, and you have to get the birds to point B. What do? Train them. What else? Fold the paper. Oh, we've got a creative mindset in the room. I love it. Thank you so much. We could fold the paper so that A becomes B. Now let us come back into reality. What else could we do? Excellent. We could throw food. And theoretically, what happens? The birds follow. Ladies and gentlemen, one of these is called management. And one of these is called leadership. The future is leadership. We are all leaders now. All leaders now. The word manage comes from the French word manège, which is a place that you train horses. I believe there are only two things you should manage: objects and horses. Everything else should be led. Led. It is a human dynamic. There's many forms of leading. You could lead by the front. You could be a servant leader. You could lead by simply asking questions. There are many forms of leadership. The principle, however, is people want to be led as leaders. You hear the distinction there. They want to be led as leaders. They are leaders. That means they are empowered. So, I do this exercise with many different organizations, and I was doing it for a group of engineers, Swiss engineers. And I asked them, if you had bricks here and you were going to throw them to point B, what would you do? Well, they told me the angle of efficiency I needed to throw it at. Brilliant. And then when I gave them the second task, they said, without hesitation, kill the birds and throw them. Brilliant! Brilliant! Let's be careful what engineers are enabled to do, right? The future, ladies and gentlemen, the future. I want to introduce something very important. This is the heart of my content. You have to write this stuff down. This is the 3 levels of innovation. The 3 levels of innovation. 3 levels of innovation is based on components, connecting those components, and the greater context in which they're placed within. There are 3 levels to innovation. The first level of innovation is about components. Components are things. By the way, an app could be a thing. Components are the pieces, the parts. And then once you have those components, they need to be connected to other things, to other components. And those connections need to be connected to other connections to form a context. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the 3 levels of innovation. Now calm down. Calm down. The 3 levels of innovation. The majority of innovation takes place on the level of components. Things and stuff. Components. If you want to innovate, take an existing component and connect it to another existing component. Your first step to innovate is to step from level 1 to level 2. That's all. If you want to be advanced, you want to move forward with this, then what you do is you create ecosystems by making connections of connections, and you move into a bigger dynamic. Example, Philips in Holland, they create a thermometer which is used to measure your temperature. The component of the thermometer has an excellent form and function. Form and function is a component. It works. Then what they do is they take the thermometer, they connect it to a computer, and they connect it to the patient, and if the patient's temperature goes up, the nurse is informed. They create a circle. So the thing is connected to other things. Now they're creating a system. So when connecting things, you create systems. And then Philips these days is actually asked to consult on the future of hospitals. That is the ecology. That is the context. Whatever you're doing is at one level of these. And I urge you to take the step to the next level. And by the way, you will see that these boxes are inclusive. In other words, to have a great context, you need great components, great connections to have great components. You need to have all of them. So, here we go. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about the magic word called innovation. And I want to offer you just one word back. If there's only one word you're going to take away from this presentation, it's this magic word here, and it's called what? Sorry? Alternatives. Alternatives. I'm going to meet some of you after this presentation, and I'm going to walk up to you and I'm going to say, what is the one word you got from this presentation? And you're going to say back to me, what? Alternatives. Why? Why? Because innovation is nothing more than alternatives. You either take something that exists and make it better, or you create something new. Innovation is simply a line of alternatives. You take something that exists, you make it better. It's an alternative. Or you move further and deeper into creating something new, which is nothing more than an alternative. If anybody ever says the fancy word to you, innovation, all I want you to think about is what? Alternatives. The word innovation has become so loaded in business and claimed by MBAs, claimed by agencies, claimed by the digital dynamic. Innovation is alternatives. That's all. That's all I want to say. So, let me tell you a story. It's about this. The quality of our relations defines the quality of our results. The quality of our relationships defines the quality of our results. I began by talking about relationships. I began by talking about results. Focus on relationships. I have had the honor of flying around the world, speaking at many different events, meeting very different people. And one time in LA, I am backstage, and there is a gentleman there called Al Pacino. So, Al Pacino is an amazingly warm, wise man, and he told a story. And the story was the following. When he was a young man, he said he made many mistakes, and the biggest mistake was this. He said that because he was famous when he was young, people knew him. So they would come up and say, hey, Al Pacino. And he made the mistake of not getting to know them. They didn't know him. They knew the persona of him, and he didn't know them. He had no relationship with them. And he said he made mistake after mistake in life and business because he had no relationship. And he said his life was transformed when he realized the quality of relationships defined the quality of his results. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want better results, if you want better results in your life, in your business, then we have to get better at our relations. Relations, of course, are between you, your colleagues, you, your customers, you, your competitors. So, there's a piece of language here that I want to also unpack, and it's the following. It is the difference between problem solving and opportunity seeking. Often we use the word problem solving, opportunities mixed up in business. And what I want to offer you is clarity on this. Here it is. You are on a path, you want to continue on that path, and there's something in the way. This, ladies and gentlemen, is called problem solving. In order to solve that problem, you have to go over, go under, go around, get rid of it. You have to get a solution. Problem solving is based on solutions. Solutions. Problem solving is not the same as opportunity seeking. This is opportunity seeking. We are going along a path and that happens. There's no problem. There's nothing in the way. There's nothing stopping us. This is a fundamentally different mindset. And the mindset here is not driven by solutions, it is driven by value. We need to become value-driven mindsets, not problem-solving mindsets. Problem-solving is a managerial task. Value creation is a leadership task. You feel the difference? Of course we need to solve problems. We will forever solve problems. In fact, there's a beautiful dynamic of solving problems. You have a problem, you solve it. That solution creates change, which creates a new problem, which creates, you see it? We're going. The future, ladies and gentlemen, is this idea of creating value. So, we're reaching the end of the roll. And before I re-roll and summarize, there's one final story I want to tell you. This is a great story that I have from nature. It's from science. It's really simple. When you bring carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen together, what is created? Anybody, ideas? Life. What else? When I ask this to Irish people, they usually say alcohol. But then again, if you ask them any question, usually the answer is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen produces, in the right context, sugar. Is there sugar in carbon? No. Is it in hydrogen? No. Is it in oxygen? No. Where did the sugar come from? Magic. Some people call it science. Ladies and gentlemen, this is called an emergent quality. An emergent quality. You may have heard of the saying that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Right? Why do we need each other? Why do we need a culture of collaboration? Why do we need to collaborate? To produce sweet spots. To produce an emergent quality. And no matter how sweet you are not the sugar. You are the oxygen, or the hydrogen, or the carbon, or who brings this context together. The future is about emergent qualities. That is a force we can create. Feel that? Next time somebody comes up to you and says, why do we need to collaborate? Look them straight in the eye and say, sugar, and walk away. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to recap, re-roll, and bring all of this together. This is to remind us about the forces of our time, the forces that are operating on ourselves, on our organization, on our environment. From all of those dynamics, these forces are acting on us. There is one force of problem solving compared to value creation. In addition to that, if we want to focus on results, Focus on relationships first. Results will follow. What is the one word you're going to take away from this presentation? What is it? Alternatives, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because innovation is nothing more than alternatives. Innovation is not a digital thing. Innovation is not a fancy process. Innovation is not something we have to gear ourselves up to. Innovation is simply asking ourselves, what is the alternative? There are 3 levels to innovation, or 3 levels in how to create alternatives. The first level is about components. The components then are connected, and the connections then are in a context. If you remember way back, Apple had a thing that was called the iPod. And it had an excellent form and function. The iPod was connected through what? iTunes. Remember? And then iTunes becomes this whole ecology of apps and money generation. So, the future is leadership. We are all leaders now, and we all want to be led as leaders. Attitude and actions. I'm going to slightly go over time because I have to tell you this story. I have to tell you this story. I was on an aeroplane. Many airplanes I spend my time on. And it was one of those delayed flights, stuffy, crowded, people are getting annoyed. And there was one gentleman, and he was being an idiot, which is a very polite way of saying how he was behaving. And he was annoying all of the people around him. And finally, we take off, and we're in the air, and we're settling down. And the air hostess comes out, and she starts giving sandwiches to us. And she gives him a sandwich like everybody else. He picks up the sandwich, tastes it, and he gives it back to her, and he says, "This is a bad sandwich." She takes the sandwich, she looks at it, she looks at him, and she says, bad sandwich, and gives it back to him. Wow! Wow! The plane erupts. Ladies and gentlemen, attitude. Attitude is everything. Attitude is gold. Attitude is what defines your culture. You want to go up and you want to hug that lady and say, what were you thinking? How did you want to analyze her? You want to take her and put her into your organization, no matter what your organization is. A sandwich making company. The future. We need to design the future. That is the space that leaders operate in. We design the future. Again, we have the word technology. Technology is nothing more than a means or a method of knowledge. Unpack the word technology. Unpack the word innovation. Let us make it human. Let us bring it close to us. Bring it close to you, your team, your organization. And say, well, what is our means of knowledge? And when you do so, you see everything differently. 3-letter strategy, ladies and gentlemen. 3 letters. The only strategy you need ever. You act. You reflect. You do that fast. And then you consult. And you do that as openly as possible. Notice I gave you a qualification for how you act and reflect. Fast. And I gave you a qualification for how you consult. Openly. Act, reflect, consult. Act, reflect, consult in the form of an arc. In order to overcome the challenges that we have, we need to be able to operate on second-order learning. Second-order learning is transformational. How could we transform? By asking, what is the alternative? We can overcome the concept of the head, hand, by inducing the heart. We can understand how we can align ourselves and everybody within our organization by understanding which way is north. Which way is north? There you go. The group is aligned. There are 3 forces This is big picture stuff, guys. Big picture stuff. Think about all of the concepts and names and new dynamics that we have in technology. I believe they fit into 3 packages. The first package is it's about a way of knowing and a new way of knowing. It's about a way of making, new ways of making, and it is about enabling. There are only 2 things that every business does. They innovate and they communicate. Innovation is a way of creating alternatives to meet the customer's needs. Communication is nothing more than saying, buy from me. Let me serve you. Let me meet your needs. When you understand the force, you can predict the form. The forces of our time, ladies and gentlemen, which brings us back to our summary. The forces of our time. What I want to offer you is the following. We focus our activities on components. Those components are then connected, and the connections are then placed within a context, which then comes back and feeds into the components. Each one of those takes place in the form of an arc. You act, you reflect, you consult. You act, you reflect, you consult. We have a circle of innovation which is echoed in the communication of your essence. We are all carriers of the flame. And that force that is going to define all of this is going to be based on new ways of knowing, new ways of making, and new ways of enabling. What's the one word I'd like you to take away? Alternatives. Somebody mentioned the word results. I like that. Because what is alternatives going to give you? Better results. Let us bring all of this together. Your components are connected within a context. You use arc, act, reflect, and consult as a way of operating. You have communication in the essence of what you're doing around this circle of innovation. And you are looking at and considering the forces of knowing, making, and enabling. And I believe that when you do this, you will have a magnetic force and a fire that burns brightly. Thank you very much.